Scientists have a pretty sweet gig. We get to do all kinds of fun things, like explore the oceans, trudge through the woods, and work in labs. But with this great fun comes great responsibility. The work and research that scientists get to do are only fun when they're safe as well. Being safety conscious is important in any setting, but especially when working with chemicals and specimens in the lab. Generally speaking, lab safety involves the proper use, storage, and disposal of any chemicals and specimens that you may be working with. Chemicals are incredibly useful in lab work and will probably be something that you use on a regular basis. Biological specimens are also common in labs. These are any biological tissues, fluids, or organisms, and they're very useful because they allow us to learn firsthand about anatomy, physiology, biochemical processes, diseases, and more. Handling both chemicals and specimens properly is a big part of lab safety. So let's take a look at how to do this. I know you're probably really excited to get started working in your lab, but I promise that your experiences will be much more enjoyable if you take the time to understand and practice some basic safety measures first. For example, think about a very simple chemical reaction that seems pretty harmless, mixing baking soda and vinegar. When combined, these two substances react to create a large amount of foam that may even overflow out of the container. This reaction is pretty safe as long as the foam has somewhere to go. But if you perform this chemical reaction in a closed container, the pressure inside could build up enough that the container explodes, which is a dangerous situation. Can you see how, under the right circumstances, any chemical reaction can quickly get out of hand? This is why proper handling of your chemicals is so important. You need to be fully aware of how your chemicals will react when mixed, how much you need to mix, what kind of containers to mix them in, and how those chemicals will react to things like light, heat, cold, water, and air. The safest thing is to always assume the worst with any chemical and treat it as a dangerous substance. Being overly cautious will prevent spills, accidents, explosions, or worse. Plus, the more careful you are, the more certain you can be of your results. Safely managing your chemicals includes not just hands-on use, but also their storage and disposal, as well as the personal protective equipment you may need to wear. For example, some chemicals need to be stored in the refrigerator, while others you want to make sure you don't store in the cold. Some chemicals need to be stored where they're not exposed to light, while others need to be stored in certain materials like glass or plastic. How you dispose of your chemicals will also be specific to each substance. Some can go down the drain, while others need to be deactivated or decontaminated before you can throw them away. And when you're handling your chemicals, make sure you wear the proper protective gear. Safety goggles, gloves, aprons, and even full protective suits may be required if the chemicals can harm your skin, eyes, or other parts of your body. Lab specimens are different than chemicals, but need to be approached with the same precautions and respect. No matter what you're using them for, to ensure the safety of you and others working in the lab, you also need to know how to handle, store, and dispose of your specimens properly. Specimens in the lab are often preserved so that they can be stored for long periods of time or shipped from one place to another. These chemicals are great for preservation, but may be hazardous to your health if you inhale them or get them in your eyes or on your skin. To protect yourself, you may need to wear gloves, goggles, and an apron or lab coat. On the flip side, you're also protecting your specimens from you. That's right, your body is made of organic matter that can contaminate your samples if you touch or breathe on them, so wearing protective gear ensures that both parties remain unharmed. Depending on your lab, your specimens may not be preserved, but very much alive. Working with live organisms like mice or other animals is a whole new ballgame, because you'll need to protect yourself from bites, scratches, and other physical contact with your specimens. Live specimens present an entirely different range of possible accidents than preserved ones, so your handling protocols may be quite different as well, and you should familiarize yourself with them for both the safety of you and your specimens. You might also be in a lab that handles human tissues or fluids. There are extra precautions warranted here because these types of specimens are common disease vectors. With these types of specimens, gloves, eye protection, and lab coats are hard minimums. Again, these will protect both you and your specimens from coming in contact with one another, as well as protect you from possibly dangerous or deadly specimens. And again, just like with chemicals, the storage and disposal of your specimens will be specific to what you're working with. Live specimens you probably don't want to put in the fridge, at least if you want to keep them alive. But human tissues need to be kept cold to prevent them from naturally breaking down. And because many specimens are biological, they can't just be thrown away or washed down the sink. Instead, you'll need to dispose of them according to the guidelines outlined for you or however else your lab manager indicates. Okay, now that you know how to handle your chemicals and specimens properly, let's get to the lab and have some fun. Lab work is one of the best parts of being a scientist. It's fun, educational, and can lead to some really interesting experiments and results. But safety is key when working with chemicals and specimens. You need to ensure that you're handling, storing, and disposing of your chemicals and specimens properly. This may include wearing protective gear, decontaminating samples before throwing them away, and putting both chemicals and specimens in areas that ensure their safety and the safety of others in the lab. Safety lessons themselves may seem boring, but lab safety and lab fun go hand in hand. So it's important to consider these rules anytime you're handling chemicals and specimens for your work.